Alright, so what is up guys? In the previous session we learned about what are user-defined functions and how we can use user-defined functions to reduce the number of lines in your code. So in this session we'll be learning about services and some of its functionalities. So basically whenever you open an Explorer page here, to find this Explore window, you'll head over to Window and click on this Explorer. If you don't have it, then you just click on Window and click on Explorer. That's where you get the Explorer tab. So using this Explorer, when you see this Explorer, we get a lot of services. Let's take an example. If you were to call 911, they will say, hello 911, what's your emergency service? So that the keyword service, it tells you, ask for like, let's say police, you want help for police, or let's say there's a fire, so you'll be calling the fire department or the firefighters, so on. So these are like services. So basically the police service will have like to catch the criminals, whereas a fire service will have the job to clear out the fire and whatsoever. So in the same way, we have services in Roblox Studio. Each of these services have their own task, and you can't use the player service for its functionality in the server script service. So what I'm trying to say is that if I'm trying to use functions of the starter GUI, I can't be using these functionalities inside of material service. So these functions, they are specific to one service. What I'm trying to say again is that, let's take an example. If I were to take player service, there are certain functions which only the player service has. So in order to get the service, I'll be using the keyword here, GetService players. And if I were to use, like, let's say it fires an event or a function of players which is player added, whenever I join a game, it's going to fire that. So if I'm clicking on .player, alright, so the function here I've used is player added, and what this player added does is that it fires every time a new player joins the game. So whatever code I write inside of this function or this event, whatever this is called, it runs. So the code I've written here is print player name player.name. Okay, so again, if you watch my previous video, I spoke about what are parameters. It's the same thing here. I'm passing a parameter variable here, which is player. Whenever you want to access or use functions of another service, you have to use the dot. So dot, what it tells is that it tells the compiler or Roblox Studio that you're accessing the game. Okay, inside of the game, go to the players. Okay, so inside of the players, there's a function which is called as player added. So in order to go inside of the player added, we'll be using a dot. Okay, so the Roblox Studio understands that, okay, I need to go inside player added, and then you're connecting it. So this, you just have to write it, like there's no meaning to this. There is a meaning, but I don't know about it, so you guys can just Google it. Why are we using connect here? So this is a general syntax of using a function of a service. So connect function, and I'm passing a parameter which is player and writing a code inside of this. So this parameter player, it holds the object which has just joined. So here player added is the player's character, not character, is a player instance. So here if I were to test this, it will say player name nightmare tethered. So if I were to click on this players folder here, it says nightmare tethered. And this is my player data. So this is my backpack, starter gear, player GUI, player scripts, and whatsoever. And yeah, I've run the print statement inside of this. Another thing we can use is, let's say if I were to use maybe taking the input of a player. So if I were to take an input of a player, I'll be putting a local script instead of starter character scripts or starter player scripts. In my previous videos, I've explained where do we use local scripts, where do we use server scripts, so kindly watch that. I'm not sure which one. So I think it's not in this playlist, but you guys can just check it out in my channel. It's somewhere there. Alright, so here just really small script. I've used the GetService user input service. So you might be wondering, where did I get this if it does not exist in the workspace? In the Explorer tab. In order to answer this, I would say that there are certain services which you cannot see it in this Explorer page. So in order to see those user input services, you can use the object browser. In my future videos, I've explained how do we use the object browser, or you can use the Roblox documentation to get to know about these kind of services which are not in this Explorer tab. So here I've used the user input service, and I declared it in the variable UIS, and UIS.input began. Again, this is a function of user input service, so that's why I use a dot here. Connect. These are two parametric variables which I'm declaring, input and game process event. So if I want to remove this input and game process event, and we'll say here connect function input game process event. So what this tells us is that this function input began, it has two parameters. So it does not compulsory, like you don't have to use those two variables. You can even just finish it with input. It does not matter. Okay, so here I'll be using both the variables. Okay, so here if I were to click this way, yeah, so it says what type of data type it is. So input is an input object, which is, again, I'm telling you, like if you press any key or your controls from your keyboard, that will be in the input parameter, whereas game process event is a boolean type. So I've explained my second video, which is data types. I think it was second or third, I'm not sure. So there I've explained what are boolean data types, or basically they are true or false. So here I'm using print input.keycode. If I were to run this, well, it won't say anything in the compiler, but if I were to press W, it says W. And even if I move my mouse, it says unknown. W, S, A, D, F, whatever I'm typing here, 129. So that gets registered and prints out in this input.keycode. So that was basically it about services and how we can use the functions inside of those services. In the future videos, you'll be understanding how do we access those services, how do we get to know of services which are not in the Explorer tab, Explorer window, and those functions of those services, as well as these services which are visible in the Explorer page. So till then, stay safe. Bye bye.